the money plan and the money journey that you have is just money is just enabling the life that you are living. What we're trying to do is to walk the pathway of everyone's life journey and safeguarding it through financial wellness and financial literacy.
Hey, good morning, Gerald. Welcome to the plan.
Thank you.
Um,
Good to be here.
Good to be here too. Let me take this opportunity to introduce to you Mr. Gerald Gondo. Mr. Gerald Gondo is the Chief Investment Officer of ICEA Lion. And we have Mr. Gerald Gondo here today to try and unlock for us what this whole thing about investment, what this whole thing about planning, this whole thing about getting ahead in life and making sure that you come through life successfully. So I'm not the subject expert, but I got a subject expert next to me. So I'm just going to ask Gerald, first tell us briefly about yourself, and then maybe you can then, after that, tell us briefly about ICEA Lion, and who is ICEA Lion, and what does ICEA Lion do?
Sure. No, thank you. And it's great to be here. Who is Gerald Gondo? Look, my first response is I'm really just a picky nini from Zimbabwe. And what that means is, I grew up in a humble Zimbabwean background, went to school, played rugby, played cricket, and kind of advanced my life to end up in South Africa at university, and then started my career in financial services. And really, what makes me wake up every day, and particularly the mission that we have at ICEA Lion, is to enable and to democratize people's savings, because there'll be a point in time where you and I will not be able to work, you and I will not be able to generate income, and we must start that journey of preserving our savings and wealth early, but in a manner that suits the lifestyle of the individual. And so, really, what we're trying to do is to walk the pathway of everyone's life journey and safeguarding it through financial wellness and financial literacy. That sounds like a lot of English.
A lot of English. Can you break it down a little more to, yeah?
So, often we are challenged to say, one, I don't have enough to save, or secondly, how do I go about starting my savings journey?
Yeah.
And the simple answer is it's now. And the simple answer is that it's never too little to save. So what we are saying is that it's actually a discipline. Every day you're waking up and you're saying to yourself, the necessities that I have in life, I must pay my rent, I must pay for electricity, I must pay for water. How do I balance those with the objectives of my life? I'm a mother of 2 children. One is 2, one is 6. Sooner or later, they're going to need to start to go to primary school. How am I saving towards that objective? But in the meantime, nappies must be bought, formula milk must be bought, birthday presents must be bought, and to balance those within a budget. So it starts off with really to say, what are my necessities versus my objectives, and let's start the budgeting around that.
Interesting. Interesting you say that. I mean, you talked about you. I just want to take back a little bit to school. I know you're talking about investments and talking about people planning for life, but you just talked about your school and you talked about sports.
Yeah.
And how you ended up in university. You played a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit
Yeah.
of that, To what level did you play? And does that have any impact in what you do today or what you became?
Definitely.
And I'll give you a little bit of background to that.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine who runs a company, and he told me something very significant the other day. He said to me, Dick, when I hire salespeople, when I hire people in my company, I believe, and when I look at their CVs after they've gone through all the recruitment process, they all have a degree and they're all qualified. The differentiator for me comes in the resilience that the candidates have.
Yeah.
And his conclusion is that sports people who have played sports or team sports at some level have higher resilience than just A students.
Yeah.
So he says, look, I've got the CVs and all these guys are the same. So I'm going to choose who I'm going to hire. And I'm going to hire that guy who has got some sports in his credentials, because he's learned how to fail and pick himself up every day.
Yeah.
Because you lose a game, you can't reminisce and say we lost, therefore we're not going to play on. And he says, look, this guy loses a game today, tomorrow he's ready to play again and he's at his best.
Yeah.
So they prepare every day. Does that have any impact in what you do and how you were?
Hugely. I mean, it's I suppose it goes to the core of me as an individual, in that I certainly was not an A student, so my CV would not have gotten me through that. But I suppose I built a balanced lifestyle, and sport has been integral, really, for the values. You know, you're not, particularly within team sport, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your teammates.
Yeah.
The second one is showing up.
Yeah.
If you believe you're coming into that hockey, cricket, soccer match, and in your mind you don't believe you're going to win, it's probably almost certain you're not going to win the game. The team may carry you, but you know in and of yourself, you didn't show up.
Yeah.
And that applies with everything in life.
Exactly.
Today, my wife is going to Karen for what do they call these market days?
Yes.
And she's a small business owner. She's an entrepreneur. And I said to the girls before I got up, it's not often that you get an opportunity to show up for your mom, but today you got to show up, because guess what? Your school fees, your next hairdo is all coming from that.
Yeah.
And so it's about that ability to. It's very easy to lie in today, but you're going to wake up and get it done. And then lastly, the hunger to win. I think all of us are waking up not wanting to lose in life. We're wanting to progress in life. Yeah. And there will be wins and losses, but it's wins and losses towards a specific objective.
Exactly.
And I think going back to what we're trying to achieve through this podcast series, it's to orientate people to remember that the money plan and the money journey that you have money is just enabling the life that you are living.
Yep.
And it must then have an objective to enable you to achieve the life things that you want to achieve. That's really the only role that it plays. And so when you wake up every morning and say, okay, fine, this life that I'm living, what is it that I need to achieve today versus achieve in the next 3 months versus achieve in the next 5 years? And then you are using money to enable you to achieve those objectives. And going back to the sports analogy, it's showing up every day. You can't be a high performance athlete if you're lying in every Saturday morning. Unfortunately, if that is the objective, it's sweat time Saturday morning.
Interesting you say that. I mean, so therefore, I mean, it's this investment thing seems to be a mystery. Is it a preserve of some people? Can anyone invest? When does one start? Is it that people can start from anywhere, or is it just that some people are born to be investors and some don't have the capacity to? Or what is it that the mystery? Is there any mystery about this thing? Because I see there's so much that's going on everywhere, and there's so much differentiation. Do I have to wait to get a big source of income, a lump sum? What is it that's the mystery about investing for successful investing?
Yeah, so I think us within the industry put our hands up for too much jargon. So no more jargon. The second thing I think is what's most important is commonality of understanding the language or the jargon.
Yeah.
So saving emergency needs. You must protect yourself against the life happenings that happen sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes every 2 weeks. So the little that you have, 100 shillings that comes in, 10 shillings can be put away for that life emergency. And life emergencies don't happen every day, let's be honest. But you know they're going to happen. So when you have that life emergency that now needs 100 shillings, but you've been saving 10 shillings each week, you're not facing that life emergency at zero. At least you're facing it with something. Okay? And that is very good for your state of mind, because you're not reactive. You now know that I'm saving towards the mishaps of life that come from time to time. The second thing is really to say, if I've catered for these short-term emergencies. How am I catering for my future, the tomorrow that I want? And the tomorrow again must be taken back into life. The tomorrow is that child who's 2, who's going to turn 3, and God willing is going to turn 18 one day. How am I starting to prepare myself financially for that? And either through education policies or either through money market funds that you're not saving for 7 days, but you're saving for 3 months or 6 months. So, that's another muscle you're building. You're building a short-term muscle, and you're now building the medium to long-term muscle. Then the last one is, it's very good to think that way because you're waking up every day and you're being productive. But what happens if one day you're sick?
Yeah.
So you're protecting yourself for those days that you can't wake up and generate that income. So you must invest in your health. You should have a medical policy for as low as possible, because you're protecting yourself from those times where you can't show up for yourself, but you also have the means to ensure that the day that you can't show up for yourself doesn't mean that there's something that cannot show up for the rest of your family.
Interesting.
And that's what medical policies and other protection policies serve. So it doesn't have to wait for a lot of wealth. It has to wait for you first prioritizing needs and objectives. And then with the little that we have, we now start to help you find the right products within the purse that you have for it.
Interesting.
But those needs and objectives really should be encapsulated into your life plans.
Interesting. I mean, what you say is so interesting, that you have to plan. But in our society, it's very interesting how we look at things. And perhaps our society has been made to believe that there is somebody else who will help me when I get into trouble. When my financial needs overwhelm me and I need school fees or have an emergency, I'll call Arambe. I mean,
sure. Outsourcing the responsibility.
Exactly.
Sure.
But how do we, is that the right thing to do? Or is there a way that we can transition from that to be more independent and therefore plan for our own selves so that we're able to meet our own obligations when they're due, all things being equal, Is there something you can do that? Are there some tools that can help us individually do that so that we can get into that situation? Yeah.
Look, the first place to start is write it down.
Yeah.
You've gotta discipline yourself to say, okay, Gerald, on the 25th of each month, you know that rent is going to be paid. How much is that rent? On the 26th of each month, there's school fees to be paid. How much is? To write it down. Because that way you're now actually aligning yourself to saying, these are the things that I must now meet. And you're committing yourself to it. If it's not written down, generally, it's going to be forgotten. Or you don't have a means or a tool to remind yourself that these are the necessities and the objectives that I need to meet. The second one, I would strongly encourage any of our podcast viewers to do is to take the time to actually decide for yourself the boundaries you want to set for yourself. Because let's be realistic. We live in a generation where I think the analogy is you're sandwiched between raising young children and getting them through school and the like, and then also looking after your parents. They have a color-coded tax phrase that they use for it. And for all of us, those are the constraints that we're operating in. But those constraints cannot be open-ended, because relatives will die, unfortunately. Kids will need to go to school, unfortunately. And you need to put in place those boundaries as to what level you are willing to participate within those constraints and to stick to them. Which goes back to writing it down.
Yes.
And then the third one is committing to it. And that's where financial advisors and the network of service providers within the financial services industry can help. Because like going to gym, you need an accountability partner. And the accountability partner is then there to help you, not for the times that you're motivated to go to the gym and motivated to go for a run.
Yeah.
For those times where it's like, hey, someone has called for Arambe this, someone else has called for contribution this, but I still have this objective of making sure that I save 500 shillings by the 31st of December towards my child's education plan. Then the accountability partner can come to you and say, here are the needs, here are the priorities.
Yeah.
But what was our plan before these new needs and
Yeah.
these new priorities came up?
Yeah.
And does that cause us to deviate from the plan?
Interesting.
That 3-step process is critically important in order for you to actually meet the objectives. Because if you don't, guess what? You're the only one left in the room bashing yourself.
Yeah.
But everyone else who has benefited from your sacrifice isn't in the room with you.
Exactly.
And particularly within this generation, we need to stop bashing ourselves, but rather to prioritize meeting the objectives that we set out before life's events sometimes want to cause us to deviate from those objectives. It's critically important to build those muscles.
Mm-hmm. So is there a particular time that is suitable to start?
Now, and I'll tell you why I say that. The days before, you used to say, okay, fine, I've got 100 shillings. Now I need to get out of bed. I need to get into a matatu. I need to go to the post office, or I need to go to the bank. It necessitated action.
Yes.
Right? Now you can literally be lying in bed and you can save.
Yeah.
For as little as 1 shilling, as little as 500 shillings, you can save. So you've got the digital enablement to save from the comfort of your home.
I was going to ask you, how do you do that? How do you invest when you're lying in bed, you know?
Well, one, you must have the income. So so hopefully you've done enough for you to have had the luxury to lie in bed and do so. But the second thing that one needs to take into consideration is that often what we tell ourselves is that the thing that I want to save for needs 10,000 shillings.
Yes.
Okay. And then we say, but I only have 100 shillings right now. So what's the use? I'm never going to get to the 10,000 shillings. Okay. But let's say you have an objective or a need at the end of the week, which is simply to say, by the end of this week, I want to make sure that I have saved 10 shillings towards 100 shillings, towards a goal.
Yeah.
And you set that goal to say, in 10 weeks, I must have had 100 shillings.
Yeah.
Now, if you can prove to yourself over 10 weeks, 10 shillings a week to get to 100, you're not starting at zero anymore.
Exactly.
You've proven to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah.
So let's now go into week 10 to week 20. Let's now move that up to 150 shillings. And maybe you fall off along the way at week 15 and you're now only at, 175 shillings. You're still not at zero.
Yeah.
The key thing is inertia. You're not moving.
Yeah.
You're not committing. You're not doing anything towards it. But you still have the objective of savings.
Yeah.
And each day you don't do anything towards it. Guess what? All you're doing is beating up yourself. Because what you're telling yourself ultimately is that you haven't done anything.
Yes.
But every day when you can say, I've done 10 shillings, guess what you're telling yourself? You've done something. And every day you're telling yourself that you've done something. There's a much better story to tell yourself to do something the next day and the next day and to keep that momentum. But accept the fact that there will be wobble days. And that's fine. But you're no longer telling yourself you have not done something. It's what you're telling yourself within your mind that is a critical part of the savings journey. And it starts now with as little as it is. If it's 1 shilling, 5 shilling, 10 shillings, it's not the amount, it's the doing. You have to do it.
Because one of the biggest things, one of the most challenging things in this is consistency, I believe.
Yeah.
How do people get to be consistent so that they can actually get to the goal they are looking for? You know, because when I start with very good intentions, but then somewhere along the way, there's an intervening opportunity. And then, hey, there's almost a tendency,
Yeah.
a drive, to shift from where I'm heading to take the new opportunity that's come up. How do people get through this? How do I manage to make sure that I stick to my plan,
Yeah.
and I get to the goal that I'm looking for?
So I always like to work in buckets.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself in the initial days or the first days, is I have two buckets in life.
Yeah.
This bucket is a non-negotiable. Anything that goes in it,
Yeah.
I lock the key
Yeah.
and I lock
Throw
it away.
Yeah.
This bucket is negotiable, but to a level. So every day, if mom, aunt, cousin, brother comes with, I've got an emergency, which happens. This bucket
Yeah.
says, I'm happy to cater for your emergency, but up to this level, not more. And every day you're balancing between those two buckets. Because this is the bucket of gratification.
Yeah.
You've done something, it's locked away, you're not going to remove from that gratification. And then this is the bucket of life.
Yeah.
Because life will always come and generally throw pleasant surprises once every 30 days, but 29 out of 30, it's unpleasant to annoying surprises. But you must manage the level of annoyance that you are willing to tolerate. And this must come out of this bucket. And every day, you're not telling cousin, mother, brother, sister, emergencies happen, this is my tolerance level. Now you know. You've set the parameters for everyone. Easier said than done. And everyone says, yes, but, you don't understand circumstances, etc. It's on you. At the end of the day, ultimately, it's on you. Because you're measuring your ability for you to achieve these objectives based on your own merits, not the needs and the expectations of the society that we live in.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also the other factor of, we are human beings.
Yeah.
We live in a society, and we all have peers, and we all have needs, and we have, very varied. When I sit down with my peers, for example, and they start talking about what they've done for themselves,
Sure.
and then I sit there and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that person looks like they've done so much for themselves,
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey,
Leveling up.
yeah, leveling up. I don't seem to be as successful as this person.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Like, hey, is that fear? What is it? Is there a way to overcome that fear and try to get to the same level of where you're comfortable with, or why you're investing successfully? What do I do in circumstances like that? Yeah.
Well, the race is yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're racing against yourself.
Yeah.
And we all have different lanes that we are racing in. And it's good to sometimes look over and say, okay, that person is slightly ahead or this person is slightly behind, but it's not your lane.
Yeah.
You got to do that which is within your lane and within your capacity. I think the second one is relevance of these things that we're calling successful. If one day within the month or one night within the month, you say to your husband and you say to your kids, this Saturday of this month, from this time to this time, I want to walk into the bath. There must be bubble bath, there must be candles, there must be good music playing. And that is how I'm going to reward my savings journey, right? You may not be driving the Porsche Cayenne that your neighbor is driving, but you're doing something that actually is meaningful for you for one night, and meaningful not only to you, but to the people that are meaningful to you, your husband and kids. And that's your reward. That's what you are going to define as success. And if you can have a Saturday evening dedicated to yourself for 6 months running, then at the end of that 6 months, maybe with a portion of what you've saved, you take the family for dinner or treat yourself that way. So a long way of saying success must be defined by things that are actually relevant to you, not by things that you're seeing what the next door neighbor is doing, because we're all running in different lanes, number one, and number two, these objects that we're looking at that we are saying are signs of success. When it's all said and done, it's 6 foot under and you're not taking them with you.
Exactly.
But what you are taking with you are these memories that you're building with the people that you love, hopefully.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, one of the things that I see is common, and probably also to me, that I've done in my life is inflation.
Mm.
I mean, inflation is part of life, but the inflation I'm referring to here is that whenever I've made a little bit more money at
2
work,
steps forward.
yes,
10
when my
steps back.
paycheck increases, I increase my expenses.
Yeah.
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 When my paycheck increases, it tells me, oh, you need to upgrade your car. You need to upgrade your residence. You need to buy another suit. You need to buy another pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Is this the right thing to do, or is it? I mean, I don't know. Where does this fit in the planning cycle?
Yeah.
If you're planning both for the short term, the long term, and all this stuff. Because that's a very common thing amongst people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing is you are the minority. You've got a paycheck that is escalating. The majority doesn't, and that's something that we must be mindful of. Is that even when talking about this money planning and financial journey, it must be democratized.
Yeah.
It must not only be for those who have the benefit of a paycheck coming every month, because that's not the majority. That's the minority. But the second thing I think that one needs to really appreciate is the relevance of what you're saving towards as well. And you know, on my way here, the Uber driver Rafael, who is driving here, and initially we didn't say anything to each other. And I thought, well, this is a bit odd. You're going to
Tell me more about
start
this.
about start a podcast about
Yeah.
financial wellness, and Rafael is the majority. There are many Uber drivers out there that are individual entrepreneurs, and they also have a wife, and they also have 2 kids that have savings objectives that they want to meet. And so I said, Gerald, let's talk to Rafael.
Yeah.
And Rafael took me through his journey, and his journey is a common journey in that he worked in the hospitality industry. COVID happened, flattened out many businesses. He was made redundant. And fortunately, the company that he worked for gave him a benefit payment. And that benefit payment, 50% of it, he immediately took it to a car dealership and placed a deposit for his car. And then the other one, he started to hustle. He got into agriculture. There was a good harvest. Good harvest resulted in him now paying off the car. And now he's an Uber driver and generating income on a daily basis. So I said to him, okay, but what was your plan after redundancy to now decide this is what you want to do? And he said, listen, at the time, my kids were babies. I didn't know whether my wife would stay in her job because of the uncertainty around COVID. So I looked and said, what is the thing that makes the most sense for me? And I think that for me resonated to say the savings goal or the investment goal has to be relevant to what makes sense for you. And for Rafael, that's what he saw and he went with it. Then the second thing that struck me is that even now, the COVID experience taught him that you do need to save. You do need to plan for these life events, because the times that we're living in now are highly uncertain. So it's not a known that COVID won't come again or something like that. And every time that someone pays him with M-Pesa, he's now saving digitally a portion of those payments into a digital savings plan. So it's, technology again is rearing its head to say it's democratizing the ability for people to save. And then what heartened me was that I said, okay, fine, but what is the long-term objective? And there's a financial advisor, I think her name is Esther. Is it Esther, Dennis? Mercy. And Mercy was like me, an Uber rider. And Mercy must be commended for being a great financial advisor, because she convinced Raphael to buy a 10-year endowment with profit plan. So a 10-year savings plan during an Uber ride.
Interesting.
And so for Raphael and Mercy, they've proven 2 things. Number one, you don't need to be in day-to-day employment
Yes.
in the traditional sense to save,
Interesting.
because Raphael's need to be an entrepreneur and to cater for his children, to cater for his well-being,
Yes.
enabled him to, one, become an entrepreneur, but two, continue the savings journey.
Yeah.
So he's doing both. Then the second thing is he's having a very clear view of his tomorrow state. So today he's saving via M-Pesa through a digital wallet to cater for his immediate emergencies. But he's also looking for the tomorrow. These two young kids are going to need to go to primary school. They're going to need a form of income. And the policy that is bought will pay him a form of income on an annual basis, and obviously a lump sum at the end of 10 years. But it's also going to ensure that it's not a given that he's going to be here in 10 years' time.
Exactly.
So what is he investing in or saving towards in the event that he's not there? So he's protecting future income. Bucket number one is today's income, emergency funds, and he's got a money market account clearly. Bucket number two is tomorrow's income, protecting the future income. And in this instance, it's an investment policy, but it could easily be an insurance policy, but you're protecting tomorrow's income. And then I think the last part of his journey, which will come in the fullness of time, is what's going to be the bucket he's now going to use for when he can't drive anymore. And how are we now protecting him against that? To your point, inflation. It's that last bucket that, one, you need to start saving for now, but two, you need to give the time to grow at a rate that is above the inflation that you're experiencing on your wallet. Because at that point in time, you don't have the means to generate income. You've only now got this last bucket to hopefully prosper during your retirement years.
Interesting. I mean, this guy obviously chanced on the advisor.
Yeah.
But how does a common person who has no knowledge of all this that you have chance on an opportunity like this? Is there a way that they can get somebody that can help them? Are there advisors that are accessible, because this knowledge is not common?
Yes, and part of what you're trying to do is to democratize it. So hopefully the team is going to put this on WhatsApp and disseminate it and on Instagram and the like. But the second thing that I think is highly important is the mediums that we are using to now disseminate this information, number one, and how we are targeting the people that we need to disseminate this information to. And who are they?
Who are they?
So from our perspective, it's everyone. Because any person 18 and above who has the means to be economically active must be a saver. So we must change this concept of the presence of income therefore enables people to save. People are savers inherently. The second thing is then to look to then say, in which areas are people actually engaging in economic activities and is savings present? As opposed to saying, we are here, you come here and start saving with us. So if it is within Chama networks or within church networks, we must be present and part of the society of people. Because it's through these societal mechanisms that you're using the language that they use within their own societies to now integrate the savings plan. Again, savings is not distinct to life. It's part of life. It's part of your day-to-day living. And you need to integrate it in how you are living your life. And then to say, I'm living my life based on needs and necessities, but I'm also living my life based on objectives. But you're not living it in a vacuum. You go to school, you go to church, you go to various gatherings. And the responsibility for us is to be present where people are communing and socializing and being part of life events and enabling them to save within those
instruments.
Something
interesting that comes to my mind is this, back to what you're saying. There's savings, there's investments, there's pensions, there's trusts, there's all this stuff. we live in a country which is dominated by a lot of young people. I mean, probably 60% or 70% of our population is very young
67, yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And when I was young, for example, myself,
Long time ago.
yeah, that it was so far away. My life was so far ahead that I saw there was no need to put aside any money anyway. I had the time ahead of me to do it, you know? So every time I thought about it, it's going to be tomorrow. And also there are things that I thought that the money that I had was too little to save. Because I'm like, oh, 500 bob is too little. I'm waiting for the 1,000 or waiting for the 1 million shillings to start saving.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, okay, now I want to start. Where is the instrument? And does ICEA LION, for example, have some of these instruments of how do we, can we guide young people to not think like me when I was at that age, you know? And what advantage will that give them over time? And what is the differentiation for them between savings, investments, pensions, you know? Where should the priority lie? Is there a priority? Or if not, what is it, you know?
So, yeah, I think the priority is, again, to particularly map out the savings and investment journey as it relates to a person's life stage.
Yeah.
So, the youth at the moment, and let's look at the demographic that is currently in university.
Yeah.
Their aspiration ultimately is, one, to get a degree, hopefully, two, to get a job, or to start a business, or to do both, which is the reality of the world that we're living in. And then thirdly, hopefully to continue to invest in their minds, to continue to invest in their health, and to continue to now building wealth through acquiring houses, acquiring cars, etc. So I think our responsibility and part of what we're calling our financial wellness journey is to go into universities and to go into schools to now start imparting this knowledge, to say, yes, you're here now, but what's your plan in terms of when you leave this institution, number one. Then number two, this plan must be appreciative of the fact that you're going to need to pay rent, electricity, water. That's the life that you're about to go into, number one. Number two, you may still want to continue to advance your studies, right? You want to become a chartered accountant. You want to become a lawyer. You want to become an engineer. You want to become a coder. You want to become an influencer now. So that's a medium-term objective, but it's an objective that's linked to what? To your progress. Okay? So let's create a plan that enables you to invest towards that progress.
Exactly.
Different to a savings, rent, electricity, and water. Then the third one is to say, somewhere along this journey, children are going to crop up as life happens, right? So that child, you have an aspiration, will be born in Aga Khan Hospital. And you have an aspiration that it's going to be an event that you'll celebrate with your family, your first child. So we know that's going to happen. We want that to happen. Let's start saving towards that. To now start linking it to these life events that you're aspiring for or that you're planning for, and to now start creating savings pools for it. Then you touched on a very important point, trust. And this thing of saying, no, you need to be gray-haired to have a trust.
Exactly.
No. This trust is the best mechanism for you to now preserve this wealth that you're working so hard to build. But in a manner that's not messy when you are not there. Because we've had enough of the messes. The fighting between families. We're now taking each other to court and we're tearing each other. No more. Come on. We must learn from your generation, your dad's generation to say, no. Regulation, the laws have caught up to enable us to not create messes when people pass. And for people to be very clear in terms of the last will and testament of Gerald Gondo said, his golf clubs will be given to nephew X. So nephew X does not tear my golf clubs apart, right? And there's a clear plan that removes us from the emotion that happens when people pass to now having third parties that said, when Gerald was of sound mind, he wanted to give his golf clubs to his nephew, and he wrote it down. And it's clear for everyone. And then lastly, legacy.
Yeah.
I think we're all working very hard, hopefully, to say he lived, he did this, and he left something for those that are going to come thereafter. And that journey, we're all walking.
Yeah.
It's just we're at different stages of that journey. And we need to ensure that we are mindful of how we can achieve these objectives depending on what each stage of life we're in.
Yeah.
But it can't be, I'll do it then. These are all things that can happen now simultaneously. So start off the journey, DigiTrust.
Yeah.
You go to the ICEA Lion app, you go into ICEA Lion DigiTrust,
Yeah.
and it's got what pension options do you want as an individual or as a corporate? What savings options do you want? Do you want to start off with a money market fund, 500 shillings? What endowment policies do you want? As Raphael has just shown us,
Yeah.
he has a 10-year objective
Yeah.
that he wants to achieve, all enabled digitally and accessible now. Now, you mentioned 67% of the population are youth.
Yeah.
What is the penetration of mobiles
Yeah.
amongst those youth?
I mean,
It's probably 100%.
100%. I mean, they're watching TikTok. They're texting.
We must be present
They're
where
creating
they are.
content. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the question is, how does it then become a plan for me? You know what I mean? Because it's very easy to say that what you're saying now, as a person who's listening to you, is not for me. It's for the other person because I don't qualify to get there. But how do I know that I qualify? You know, how do I get the repository of information that says, hey, just go here to find your own plan? You know, it is for you, and you can create your own and be successful in your own way, or depending on what the goals you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, first and foremost, it's download the app.
Yeah.
And familiarize yourself really with the ability of this is not a 3-month journey. Within 10 minutes, you would have been able to activate the app, link it to your bank account, link it to your M-Pesa account. Right?
So I can actually start now.
You can start now.
Yeah.
Because I want to change the narrative in that there's someone out there saying, but it's not for me.
Yeah, that's
but you
point,
haven't even tried.
Yeah, that's
at least
point.
try.
Yeah.
At least try.
Yeah.
Right? Let's at least have the debate after you have tried.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Then the second thing is to say, no one is discounting the fact that life is hard and liquidity is low.
I don't have
No
money.
one is discounting. You don't have money,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But you do have the knowledge for when you will have money, because I have full faith in you that you're not going to give up.
Yeah.
You're going to find a means to generate income.
Yeah.
We are all hustlers out there.
No,
When you do have the money, let's agree on the plan now.
But when I have the money, I want to go and have dinner with my friends and have drinks with my friends.
Which is why we must have the conversation now. Because now you've revealed to yourself that when this one has money, he can't be trusted.
That's the point, yeah.
So let's agree on the plan now, so that when the money comes in, we are now holding each other accountable to say, M-Pesa incoming funds have come.
Yeah.
You must now call me and say, Gerald, that deal we're working on, the
put
money
it
is
in.
in. Great.
Yeah.
We agreed you're going to go for dinner.
Yeah.
Right? When the money comes in, I'm not going to push back on that.
Yeah.
But we also agreed that this is the budget that you're going to spend when you go and have dinner. So now let's agree that dinner money is going into bucket one, emergency funds. But let's also have a provision because we know you know, it's been a hard year, etc. So let's increase that budget by maybe 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the 70% now that is remaining, we know that in January, these kids must now have school fees money. We know that in January, we must buy uniforms. We know in January, we're going to need to go to the dentist before they go to school.
Yeah.
We know that now, before the money has come, before the deal money has come. Let's agree on that now.
Yeah.
So that when this reality, a good reality, by the way, you've got money, well done, has come, we are using that money wisely based on pre-agreed objectives. Pre-agreed objectives. That is the essence of this planning process. Because we believe in your ability to generate money. No one's questioning that. When is the issue. But when it arrives, there's a very clear plan. No surprises. And you're now building that muscle every time when money arrives. 30%, yes, we must go have some nice enjoyment. 70%, we must save for our future. Because guess what? There will come a day, and this is what we don't want to tell each other, when you're not going to be able to do deals.
Exactly.
What happens then? And is that now they call these generational curses? Are you now really going to rely on your daughter and granddaughter
That's
to
actually
look
the
after
point,
you?
yeah. Because, I mean, like I said earlier, when I'm in trouble, I'll go to Gerald. When I'm in trouble, I'll go to my brother.
But
These
we
guys are
can
here
break
for
that
me.
now.
Yeah.
Let's break it now. Let's agree before you've got this money that I'm very sure you're going to generate.
Yeah.
That's how you start to break these generational problems that you
Yeah.
have through this discipline.
Exactly.
Because it can't just happen by want.
Yeah.
It actually has to happen by what? Doing.
Yeah.
And the doing is also a life journey. If every day you're waking up and you're committing to the doing towards your future, then you're going to get there. But it can't start with the mindset of saying it's not for me.
That's true.
Because you're excluding yourself.
Yeah.
You're excluding yourself. No one's done it for you. Your mindset has excluded
taking
yourself
out.
from this journey.
Yeah. But so I mean, think about it this way. If I started saving today versus starting to save tomorrow, or if I delayed my savings plan, or I delayed my investment plan by a year, or by 6 months or 3 months, what am I missing? Is that a disadvantage? Is that an advantage of putting my money starting now versus waiting to start later? Does my money grow when I put it away? I mean, is there discrepancies in timing, instruments that you put it in? How do I determine? Because my objective is to grow my money as fast as I can. How do I determine this? And what should I do?
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, we must be careful how we compose these thoughts of ours.
Yeah.
Number one, who says you're going to be here in 3 months?
Yeah.
Who says?
Who says? Yeah.
So the arrogance of it all, to say, no, I can defer this because I know tomorrow I'll be here.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. But I'm very young.
Sure, you're young. But guess what? Young people cross the roads and sometimes don't end up on the other side. It happens every day, right? There are mortality tables that the actuaries do to prove that, right? So you're no smarter than the rest of us, okay? Number two, there are things that are guarding you against that very psychology.
Yeah.
Insurance policies.
Yeah.
No. I'll start my savings journey in 3 months' time, and then you're sick tomorrow and you don't have medical aid. Whereas you could have simply contributed 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 30 shillings to a medical aid. And you've deferred the cost, not to yourself, to the rest of the family that must now pay because of your arrogance.
Exactly.
Okay? But that's an extreme example. And as you can see, I'm passionate about it.
Very passionate about this, yeah.
The second way of looking at it is to say, within 3 months' time, the objective is maybe to get to 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay? But let's also change the objective to say, within 3 weeks' time, the objective is to get to 30. So here you on the 3 months, life can change a lot within 3 months. But within 3 weeks, 10 shillings
makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Interesting. So therefore, we're saying that anybody can have a plan, irrespective of what they do or whatever they are.
Should have a plan.
Should have a plan.
Everybody should have a plan. They are accessible.
Yeah.
They are digitally enabled.
Yeah.
They are transparent.
Yeah.
They are regulated. Because that's the other thing. Maybe your notion is that it's not for me because you don't trust. You've lost before.
Yeah.
You can look up the CMA. You can go to the Central Bank of Kenya. You can look to independent parties to affirm where you're putting your hard-earned money. Is it regulated?
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Yeah.
Is it secure?
Yeah.
Is there someone, an ombudsman or someone you can go and reach out to say, what was promised to me versus what has not been, what has been delivered are incongruent.
Yeah.
I can reach out to someone. Because the other thing is, people are scared of losing their capital.
Exactly.
They're scared. And that's correct.
Yeah.
You're working so hard. You do want to make sure that in 3 months' time or in 3 years' time, it hasn't just evaporated.
Exactly.
Which is why it must be in regulated products.
Exactly.
Things that you can go to a regulator and say, is this person licensed to sell this product?
Yeah.
Is it a suitable product for me?
Yeah.
Did someone explain to me how this product is
Yeah.
going to work? And most importantly, what part of this plan is this product actually fulfilling? Because the other thing is, many people are being sold many products that maybe are you're over insuring yourself for an event, and you could be putting that money elsewhere. So it takes you to actively participate within the journey,
Exactly.
and to ask questions to make sure that your money is secure, your money is safe.
You touch on that nerve of money is safe, money is secure.
Mm.
We are human beings. One of the things that we look to is to get there quick, get there
Yes.
fast, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see young people coming out of university and they want to drive a Mercedes Benz.
Mm.
I see young people coming out of university and want to live in a mansion.
Mm.
So, and then with the current opportunities that are available in the market, a lot of instruments are there that come and say, hey, put your money here.
High returns.
We'll give you a high return, you know?
Mm.
And I'll give it to you in the next, you earn 10% every month or 15% every month, you know?
Yeah.
And hey, this is the most popular thing.
Mm.
But that also has got its challenges.
Mm.
And I've seen a lot of people lose their money and lose their entire life saving because of his ambition and because of his
Greed.
Greed, that's what he call it, yeah.
Yeah.
How can we ensure, or how is it, what's the surety that I'm choosing the right product?
Mm.
And what is the advice for or against this sort of environment that you're in today? Yeah.
I think the way we've tried to make it easy for people to arrive at whether it's a wrong or right decision for themselves, because we're not always going to be there. We're not always going to be there to sit with you as you think it through. And we're thinking through 3 pillars.
Yeah.
Pillar number 1 is build the wealth.
Yeah.
And the foundation is the emergency fund that we've discussed, short-term liquidity for emergency needs.
Yeah.
And then the second block is now the investments, to then say, in terms of the 1-year goals, 3-year goals, 5-year goals, how do we want to grow our savings over a medium to long-term basis as part of this building wealth pillar.
Yeah.
The second pillar is that there's no point building something if you don't protect it.
Exactly.
Which is what insurance provides.
Exactly.
And it's protection really in terms of 3 areas. Protection of the assets that you are acquiring, whether it's a car or a house. Protection of your life and your health, so whether it's medical or a life cover. And then lastly, protection of the estate that you are putting together. So if you are successful, which I believe all of us will be, the legacy that you're leaving must not create messes when you're not there. So protection of the estate. So that's the second pillar that people can now have conversations with themselves to say, okay, fine, if I've understood first pillar in terms of build, if I've understood second pillar in terms of protection, the third pillar that I must now put in place is what happens on the day that I retire, or what happens in the time period that I cannot be as economically active. The third pillar in terms of now your pension planning and long-term retirement planning. Why? So that you are not a burden on the very people that you have tried to build wealth and protect. And secondly, so that you can actually live a good life in retirement.
Exactly.
I mean, after working for so hard, surely the best reward you could give yourself is, listen, you're comfortable in your retirement. Enjoy your retirement years.
I mean, having said all this, what is it that you see that the biggest nugget that you're going to leave this audience with, or the people that you're talking to, about the ICEA LION plans, about financial planning, financial wellness? If there was one thing or two things that we should be take out from this process or this conversation for the audience, what would you leave them with as a way forward out of this?
I think for me, it's an outward promise to say that as an organization, our mission when we started 60 years ago as a group was to democratize the ability for people to build their wealth, protect their wealth, and prosper in retirement. So everyone is waking up solely focused in terms of enabling that mission. Not only in Kenya, Now we have grown our footprint into Uganda and Tanzania. So to democratize that mission, to build, protect, and for you to prosper. And all of our systems, all of our processes are geared towards people enabling that to happen. The inward promise is to say we are so committed to ensuring that people understand what it is that they are trying to achieve in terms of their life objectives, and to make sure that they merge their life journey with their money journey. Because money is an enabler of all these things in life that we want to achieve. It's not the objective. We must live good lives, and money must be used as an enabler of it. But if that is a hope, you have to reduce that hope into a plan and a commitment to that plan. And we can help you in terms of that journey. Then I think lastly, and I would be remiss not to say it, ICEA LION Asset Management turns 40 this year.
Oh, fantastic.
So we've been helping people in terms of the building and the protection and the creation of their post-retirement plans for 40 years. People have enabled us to be one of the largest and most serving investment managers within Kenya. We've surpassed 400 billion shillings of assets under management this year. So for the members and the policy holders, it is a good year for us to celebrate 40 because your wealth has grown through the prudent investments that we've made. And life begins at 40. So we are now looking to the future to continue this mission, to democratize the ability for people to, number one, you have to build wealth. Number two, you must protect that wealth. And three, you have a responsibility to yourself to make sure that you actually can leave a legacy of all this hard work that you've done. And we want to journey with you along that.
Thank you, Gerald. I mean, this is really something but I would look forward to. And I'm actually, he's just summarized what it is that is there out there for people like me and you to look at as investment savings, insurance, and trust policies that or trust products or opportunities that exist with ICEA LION. And then he caps it up all by saying that ILAM or ICEA LION has invested over 400 billion shillings or has achieved a 400 billion shilling mark, which means that a lot of people have trusted the organization with their money. So I think there's an opportunity and an open invitation here for all of us, like Gerald has put, to come out there and have a look at what their products and services are offering for us to pick from and be able to at least plan our lives forward and make the difference in our lives as we go forward. Thank you, Gerald.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to chatting again.
Thanks a lot, Gerald. Yeah.